Before we start today's video essay and commentary tonight, I want to say if you have not subscribed to our YouTube channel, go to YouTube and type in Lawyer Henderson TV. Hit the thumbs button, hit that bell. You'll get notification when we upload a video. And make sure that you're subscribed as well. And make sure that if you are not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe as well. YouTube has a history of unsubscribing people. The Lawyer Henderson Show is live. 8 minutes and 46 seconds. That's how long former officer Derek Chavin had his knee on George Floyd's neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Lawyer Henderson. I am your host. Welcome to the Lawyer Henderson Show. Today we're talking about the death of George Floyd. As you know, it happened in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and this has been a huge problem for the white supremacists. And they know that this uprising with the situation with George Floyd, they had no choice but to charge these officers. At first they came out saying, we're only going to charge this Derek Chavin with third-degree murder, which was nothing. You know, it was a slap on the wrist. It was just like charging him with manslaughter. Now they're charging him with second-degree murder, and the other ones are three officers have been charged with aiding and abetting. But I want you to take a listen at this video clip, and then we'll come back in with more commentary as to how they're trying to white-splain things. As you know, the district attorney, Mike Freeman, has been removed from the case by the governor, and now you got this Ellison, who is the state's attorney general. So let's go ahead and roll the tape.
It's a Monday evening in Minneapolis. Police respond to a call about a man who allegedly used a counterfeit $20 bill to buy cigarettes. 17 minutes later, the man they are there to investigate lies motionless on the ground and is pronounced dead shortly after. The man was 46-year-old George Floyd, a bouncer originally from Houston who'd lost his job at a restaurant when the coronavirus pandemic hit. Floyd's death triggered major protests in Minneapolis and sparked rage across the country. One of the officers involved, Derek Chavin, has been arrested and charged with second-degree murder. The other three officers have been charged with aiding and abetting murder. The Times analyzed bystander videos, security camera footage, and police scanner audio, spoke to witnesses and experts, and reviewed documents released by the authorities to build as comprehensive a picture as possible and better understand how George Floyd died in police custody. The events of May 25th begin here. Floyd is sitting in the driver's seat of this blue SUV. Across the street is a convenience store called Cup Foods. Footage from this restaurant's security camera helps us understand what happens next. Note that the timestamp on the camera is 24 minutes fast. At 7:57 p.m., two employees from Cup Foods confront Floyd and his companions about an alleged counterfeit bill he just used in their store to buy cigarettes. They demand the cigarettes back, but walk away empty-handed. 4 minutes later, they call the police. According to the 911 transcript, an employee says that Floyd used fake bills to buy cigarettes, and that he is awfully drunk and not in control of himself. Soon, the first police vehicle arrives on the scene. Officers Thomas Lane and J. Alexander Koenig step out of the car and approach the blue SUV. Seconds later, Lane pulls his gun, we don't know exactly why, and orders Floyd to put his hands on the wheel. Lane reholsters the gun, and after about 90 seconds of back and forth, yanks Floyd out of the SUV. A man is filming the confrontation from a car parked behind them. The officers cuff Floyd's hands behind his back, and Koenig walks him to the restaurant wall.
Alright, what's your name?
From the 911 transcript and the footage, we now know 3 important facts. First, that the police believed they were responding to a man who was drunk and out of control. But second, even though the police were expecting this situation, we can see that Floyd has not acted violently. And third, that he seems to already be in distress. 6 minutes into the arrest, the 2 officers move Floyd back to their vehicle. As the officers approach their car, we can see Floyd fall to the ground. According to the criminal complaints filed against the officers, Floyd says he is claustrophobic and refuses to enter the police car. During the struggle, Floyd appears to turn his head to address the officers multiple times. According to the complaints, he tells them he can't breathe. 9 minutes into the arrest, the 3rd and final police car arrives on the scene. It's carrying officers Tu Tao and Derek Chavin. Both have previous records of complaints brought against them. Tao was once sued for throwing a man to the ground and hitting him. Chavin has been involved in 3 police shootings, one of them fatal. Chavin becomes involved in the struggle to get Floyd into the car. Security camera footage from Cup Foods shows Koenig struggling with Floyd in the back seat while Tao watches. Chavin pulls him through the back seat and onto the street. We don't know why. Floyd is now lying on the pavement, face down. That's when 2 witnesses begin filming, almost simultaneously. The footage from the first witness shows us that all 4 officers are now gathered around Floyd. It's the first moment when we can clearly see that Floyd is face down on the ground, with 3 officers applying pressure to his neck, torso, and legs. At 8:20 p.m., we hear Floyd's voice for the first time. The video stops when Lane appears to tell the person filming to walk away. The officers radio a code 2, a call for non-emergency medical assistance, reporting an injury to Floyd's mouth. In the background, we can hear Floyd struggling. The call is quickly upgraded to a code 3, a call for emergency medical assistance. By now, another bystander, 17-year-old Darnella Frazier, is filming from a different angle. Her footage shows that despite calls for medical help, Chavin keeps Floyd pinned down for another 7 minutes. We can't see whether Koenig and Lane are still applying pressure.
What do you want?
I can't breathe. Please, the knee in my dick. I can't breathe shit.
Bro, get up, get in the car, man.
I will.
Get up, get in the car.
I can't move.
I've been waiting the whole time, man. Get up, get in the car.
Mama.
Get up and get in the car right.
I can't.
In the 2 videos, Floyd can be heard telling officers that he can't breathe at least 16 times in less than 5 minutes.
Yeah, you know,
Alright, so we're going to stop the video right there. Okay, so now they know that he cannot breathe. Officer Derek Chavin got his knee on his neck, and he repeated 16 times, I can't breathe. Other bystanders come and say, listen, man, he is now gone. You know, he cannot. Look, man, what are y'all doing? You're like, y'all are crazy. Look, the man is not moving. And Derek Chavin has his knee on George Floyd's neck. And you see how corrupt these 4 officers are. They all just stand around. And when, Chavin got to the scene, we already knew that some crooked stuff was going to go overboard, because this man had 17 complaints against him before, 5 complaints against his partner. And why is it that you can continue to see this type of brutality happening in America? This is the reason why the uprising took place. It took place because of the knee on the neck. This officer's disregard for human life. He does not respect it. As a lot of experts pointed out, he is this narcissistic type police officer that you see on the police force throughout America. These are the bad apples that is still rampant in police departments throughout the country. That they have no human regard for anybody's life. I want to also talk about something else. Okay, when the demonstrators started to happen, the protests started to happen. Remember, people were pretty much, they were peaceful at first. But then when Mike Freeman came out and said we're going to charge him with third-degree murder, this was white supremacy explaining that, look, even though we have video of this crime, this murder, we're not going to charge him with first-degree murder. Everybody was asking for first-degree murder. Even the mayor of Minneapolis, they were asking for why that it took this officer so long to go to jail. But I want to read to you the Chicago Tribune here regarding this situation and why the protests and the uprising. The title here is Angry Demonstrators in Minneapolis Ransack Torch Police Station. CNN reporter arrested on air. Thick smoke hovered over Minneapolis on Friday, hours after cheering protesters torched a police station that officers abandoned a third night of violent protests flared over the death of George Floyd, a handcuffed black man who pleaded for an hour as a white police officer knelt on his neck. Police evacuated the 3rd Precinct station, the focus of many of the protests, later Thursday to protect employees, a spokesman said. Live screen video showed protesters entering into the building, where intentionally set fires, activated smoke alarms and sprinklers. President Donald Trump threatened action, prompting a warning from Twitter for glorifying violence. Okay. Goes on to say that dozens of fires were also set in nearby St. Paul, where nearly 200 businesses were damaged or looted. Protests spread across the U.S., fueled by outrage over Floyd's death and years of violence against African Americans at the hands of police. Demonstrators clashed with officers in New York and blocked traffic in Columbus, Ohio, and Denver. Trump threatened to bring Minneapolis under control, calling the protests thugs and tweeting that when the looting starts, the shooting starts. The tweet drew another warning from Twitter, which says the comment violated the platform's rule, but the company did not remove it. Trump also blasted the total lack of leadership in Minneapolis. A visibility tired and frustrated of Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey made his first public appearance of the night early Friday at City Hall and took responsibility for evacuating the precinct, saying it had to become too dangerous for officers. As Frey continued, a reporter cut across loudly with a question: "What is the plan here?" This uprising had to happen. Okay. It had to happen because police officers were getting away with too much crime. They were getting away with too much murdering of black men and women. You see about Breonna Taylor. You see Ahmaud Arbery. You see that these white supremacists were getting bold with them killing black people. The same kind of lynching that we're used to. The same type of murders of black people that we're used to. We're used of this going on. And so when they killed George Floyd, brother George Floyd, that just hit the camels on the back. That just made everybody throughout the nation. You had black people and white people coming together protesting. You've seen that they vandalized CNN building in Atlanta. You've seen that the protests were really, really harsh. Black men and women on the young black men and women. This was a young black person's movement. It wasn't a civil rights generation movement. This was the younger black generation's movement. They did a good job into waking up the world, and now the world is asking, well, what can we do now? How do we calm these black people down? How do we get them to, pacify them like we did? Because this is a kind of a different protest than the ones that we have seen before. And the ones that we've seen before have been pacified and calmed down a little bit earlier. But now we're not seeing that in this particular situation with George Floyd and, of course, Breonna Taylor. I want to also talk about Amy Klobuchar. How you say her? Klobuchar. She was one of the problems as well. And then you had this mayor of Atlanta, here in Atlanta, Keisha Lance Bottoms. She was a part of this whole entire movement, trying to talk to somebody like she was our mom, talking about go home after the protests and stuff. But Amy Klobuchar, she is one of the problems of why this was happening. Klobuchar also has a situation, a problem that when she was prosecuted, that she pretty much opened up the door for all of this corruption. But I want to read an article to you here about Klobuchar. It says, with Joe Biden considering her for his running mate, Senator Amy Klobuchar is being questioned about her record. That includes her tenure as a prosecutor in Minneapolis. In her 7 years, Klobuchar handled cases not unlike the one tearing apart the city now. Excuse me. When presented with cases against police officers involved in shooting, the New York Times report that Klobuchar regularly declined to bring charges. Instead, she sent the cases to a grand jury, a process that experts say generally favors police. I think that it was wrong now, Klobuchar told MSNBC on Friday. Per the week, it would have been much better if I took responsibility and looked at the cases and made a decision myself. The Minnesota senator said she was not involved in the 2006 case involving Derek Chavin, the officer charged Friday in the death of George Floyd. Klobuchar says she was elected to the Senate before the case was heard and that the county's prosecutor office said that she wasn't involved either. Of the cases she did take up, Klobuchar said Friday, we did not blow all of these cases. We brought them to a grand jury, presented the evidence for a potential criminal prosecution, and the grand jury will come back with that decision. She declined to answer when asked if she should take herself out of the running for the Democratic ticket. Black leaders have lobbied against her selection, and she didn't help herself this week with her reaction to Floyd's death. Her first statement urging an outside investigation was criticized for not mentioning Floyd's name or saying he was killed by police, as well as for not calling for the charge to be filed. And let's stop right there. You see, we told you in the black media that these white supremacists are on the left wing and on the right wing. They are not separated by no stretch of imagination. You got your left side of white supremacists, which are your Democrats, and you got your right wing white supremacists, which is your Republicans. And neither one of them have no respect that black men and women should have any kind of justice in this nation. We taught you that. And so this uprising came because George Floyd's death sparked a situation within the black community that cried out, enough is enough. This man's death brought on a different type of program into which they're now talking about defunding police. You got people talking about that they're going to they were going to do something regarding as far as defund the police and try to train them better. There was talks out there. We got latest news just in 1 hour that the judge in the case of Derek Chavin had set his bail from to 1.25 million in Georgia's in the death of George Floyd. So he got a 1.25 million bond. You had these Black Lives Matters fools out there. You had other people, and everybody who was out there, who was on this, the Black Lives Matters, and that we all live matter, and these bootlicking Negroes. The problem here is that there has been a lot of people, black folks and others, who have just parachuted this, especially the older black generation, who has parachuted their way into the movement. I mean, they're trying to hijack this movement that the young people and us in Generation X had came out and pursued. They're trying to hijack this. And of course, you have the white media out there trying to white-splain things, and they always want to look at his background, his past, and the white media has always tried to rationalize the race soldiers in the police department's actions and their criminal activity, the race soldiers. And you look at them in a way unto which they often try to justify the shooting and killings and murders of police. And we just had enough. This is the reason why buildings are burning, targets are being looted, businesses are being looted. This is the reaction because of this, because of no justice. And so the cry of no justice, no peace is very important in these situations. And I think what we have to understand is that the death of George Floyd brought us a new day. This is a new day. We talked there about why the black community don't have funding. And I don't understand that. Why we don't have a lot of things that you can do. A lot of people is saying that they wanted to put funding in organizations and defund the police and to put some funding into the United States, but no one is doing anything for black people. Nobody. They always talking about social change and talking about putting money. I think it was Michael Jordan who was saying that he's gonna put money into fighting racial injustice or something. Just bear with me as I pull up this article with Michael Jordan. See, we do the same thing. Okay, it says Michael Jordan brand commits $100 million donation to racial equality. What does that mean? Let's see. These people play the same game with us. They bring out these celebrities, and they pretty much say the same thing. They talk this minority crowd. They talk this people of color. They talk this crap. And they never focus on black folks. They never talk about resources for black people. And this continues to be the problem. Black folks need direct funding. But this article was written by CNBC, by Jabari Young, is getting the credit here. It says that Michael Jordan brand donates $100 million to organizations fighting racism against black people. Okay? And let's go with the article. Michael Jordan and his Jordan brand company will donate 100 million social organizations dedicated to ensuring racial equality, the company announced on Friday. In a joint statement, the Basketball Hall of Famer said that funding will also assist organizations that assist with social justice and greater access to education over the next 10 years. You see, this is the kind of things that we always get caught up into. Reading of these words suggests that he's not putting money into organizations that giving black people direct payments. It's all about giving it to organizations and charities. We're not talking about building up banks. We're not talking about putting money into the black community to build up an economic system. We're talking about giving money to organizations who are doing nothing. And then they're going to spend it where they're going to talk this LGBT crap. They're going to talk about minorities and people of color. Remember, Dr. Claude Anderson warned us about this here. It goes on to say that the Jordan brand is us, the black community, the statement said, until the ingrained racism that allow our country's institutions to fail is completely eradicated. We will remain committed to protecting and improving the lives of black people. You see, Nike, which produces the Jordan brand, is also committing $40 million over 4 years to support black communities. According to the memo, CEO John Donahoe sent a memo to employees. Donahoe note following that Nike released a movement ad last Friday telling viewers not to pretend there's not a problem in America. The drop of video online came just as protests were beginning to occur in cities and nationwide. Nike did not immediately return a request for comment. Jordan donation come days after the release of statement of the death of George Floyd, an unarmed black man in Minnesota. Floyd died on May the 25th after video footage showed Minneapolis police officer Derek Chavin with his knee on Floyd's neck following his plea of being unable to breathe. Chavin, along with 3 other officers, have been fired and charged in connection with Floyd's death. The video footage caused an outbreak for protests throughout the country, renewing conversations about police brutality, social injustice, lack of economic opportunities in black communities. You see, here we go. Los Angeles Clippers owner and former Microsoft CEO Steve Ballmer appeared on CNBC's Squawk Box, called the CEO to assist in helping underprivileged access better economic opportunities. See, it's always underprivileged. You see, this is the type of crap that we have to deal with. Just came out that Jeff Bezos responded to Amazon customers who was angry over Black Lives Matter message. My stance won't change, he said. Now, Amazon is burning on fire now. The warehouse, you see. So we have an issue here. And the bail is set with the other officers. Bail set at up to $1 million for 3 ex-Minnesota police officers charged with abetting alleged murder of George Floyd. Their bail was set. Okay, 3 now former Minnesota police officers have bail set at up to $1 million at their arraignment on charges of aiding and abetting a 4th cop and alleged murder of George Floyd. The hearing in Hennepin County Court came a day after Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison charged the men, J. Alexander Kong, Thomas Lane, and To Thao. At the same time, the hearing, Memorial Floyd, one of the several planned, began in downtown Minneapolis. Protests have occurred nationwide over Floyd's death. 3 now former Minneapolis police officers had bail set at $1 million at their arraignment Thursday on charges of aiding and abetting a 4th cop in the alleged murder of George Floyd, a black man whose Memorial Day death, which in their custody has led to more than a week of protests nationwide over police brutality. But with certain conditions, the 3 men could be released on bail of $750,000 apiece, Judge Paul Scoggins said before ordering them to the next appear in court on June the 29th. I'm hard-pressed to come up with any comparison in this case, Scoggins said. He agreed with the recommendation of Minnesota Assistant Attorney General Matthew Frank that the unconditional bail of $1 million apiece and $750,000 bail apiece for condition was warranted. Those bail conditions included not working in law enforcement capacity, surrendering any firearms, voiding their firearm permit, having no contact with Floyd's family, and agreed to waive extradition should they leave the state of Minnesota. The hearing in Hennepin County District Attorney came a day after Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison charged the man J. Alexander Kuehn, 26, Thomas Lang, 37, and 34-year-old Teo with aiding and abetting both second-degree murder and second-degree manslaughter. The trio has assisted another Minnesota police officer, Derek Chavin, and arrested the 46-year-old Floyd on May the 25th. Chavin, who is white, knelt on Floyd's neck for nearly 9 minutes. Then Floyd said repeatedly, "I can't breathe." So now we have a issue here in this country where the white supremacists were getting bold, and now you see that there is a different kind of breed. You got people now wanting to get rid of monuments. And if I can pull that up, monument, I think, of Robert E. Lee. Is that one of them? The ones that had Robert E. Lee? That let me Robert monument of Robert E. Lee. I think he was a general, that fought in the Civil War for the Confederate. And it says here that Virginia to remove Robert E. Lee's statue. Okay. Says Virginia. So the statue is coming down in Richmond, Virginia. And the governor there, Governor Northam, says Robert E. Lee monument will be removed as soon as possible. So now a lot of people throughout the country is removing these monuments.
Some will say
let's listen
Lee
to the governor
was an honorable man.
Northam here.
I know many people will be angry. But my friends, I believe in a Virginia that studies its past in an honest way. I believe that when we learn more, we can do more. And I believe that when we learn more, when we take that honest look at our past, we must do more than just talk about the future. We must take action. So I am directing the Department of General Services to remove the statue of Robert E. Lee as soon as possible.
Now, like we have said to people, they're trying to do photo ops. They're trying to do a little signal thing here or there. Nobody's talking about resources. Nobody's talking about giving black direct payments to black people. Nobody's talking about reparations. Nobody's talking about doing things tangible for us. That is the real issue. You got to do something tangible for black people. Because if you look at all of the people who died before George Floyd, you've seen that the police, including our history with them and slavery, the criminal justice system, you have a racist district attorney, you got the racist DAs and prosecutors, you got racist judges. They allow these juries to be filled with racists. You got a lot of issue in this country that you have to look at. And so that's the reason why when you get judges like Ola Stevens, who look at a jury and say, this is going to be a racial problem issue here. We got to change this jury out. You need that because this is the issue that we have to continue to face. We got to continue to face racism and discrimination as black people, and this is why the uprising is happening. This is why everybody is upset, and you even got white folks out there upset as well. Okay, the time for the black man to get some justice is very important because either we're going to get justice in the courtroom or justice in the streets, and that's very important for people to understand. You've been listening to the Lawyer Henderson Show, and don't forget that at the time that we are talking about our situation as far as being black in America, just pretty much just thank God that those of us who are still alive, that we can continue on without racism and white supremacy messing with us.